When can Americans expect to experience the benefits that President Trump said would be coming in day one?
You know, Margaret, what I find interesting is for the past year and a half and during the campaign, most of the media said, oh, the economy is great. It's just a vibe session. Now that President Trump's in office, there's an economic problem. And I'll tell you what the problem was.
We were pretty straightforward on this program.
Well, I haven't seen this program.
The reality is that, first of all, the economy has been improving in some really noticeable ways over the past month or two. Gas prices have been coming down. Interest rates are finally starting to come down. The stock market is hitting record highs. The combination of those factors, her messaging and the fact that she's getting an assist from some economic measures, are helping her close that gap with Donald Trump.
We see in our polling 52% of Americans say Trump's policies are making grocery prices go up. They explicitly said that on this bar chart you see there.
It took 4 years to get us here. President Trump's been in office 5 weeks.
I've been talking to top campaign officials, and they all continue to say that they're feeling good right now. They keep pointing to early results from Indiana, because that's one of the first states to report, where they say in suburban areas, former President Trump is doing a lot worse than he did 4 years ago. And they are pointing to that as a sign of strength for the vice president in the suburbs, everywhere. On college campuses, they say they're very pleased with the Puerto Rican turnout in Pennsylvania.
Donald Trump was on Joe Rogan, and he called you, Madam Vice President, a very low IQ person.
But Kamala is, this is known, she's a very low IQ person. And we don't need a low IQ individual. We've had that for 4 years, and our country's going down the drain.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? That hawk too.
He called you, Madam Vice President, a very low IQ person, and said, I think she needs to take a cognitive test. Would you take a cognitive test?
Sure. Oh, you gotta give him that hawk too and spit on that thing. You get me? Hawk too and spit on it. Spit on it.
Day 721 of his campaign said he's feeling very confident, has a big lead. One of the worries, some reporting from our CBS colleagues, is that he may come out early, declare victory, do so before millions of votes are cast. And if that's the case, Nora, well, we're in a world reminiscent of 2020, and it'll be a long and chaotic night.
Donald Trump ended his campaign last night. We've all covered a lot of campaigns in this room, and I was just, as Bob was talking, doing the math. I think I've been covering Trump now for going on a decade, dare I say.
So during the 2018 press conference, you had there was a little bit of tension between you and President Trump.
She's shocked that I picked her.
No.
She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In a tweet this weekend, Mr. President, do you think the trade...
Anybody have a trade?
Do you
Go
think
ahead,
your trade
please.
deal will pass through Congress, sir?
I think so, but, if it doesn't, we have lots of other alternatives. But I do think so.
I was the first reporter that he called on that day. It was an event on trade. And he said, you're shocked. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not shocked.
She's shocked that I picked her.
No.
She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
And he said, you're shocked. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not shocked. Because I wasn't shocked. It's my job. I'm in the front row. You call on the reporters in the front row.
She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
And then we sort of got into it, and I said, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Donald Trump is a coward. Did you see the fierceness in Cecilia Vega's voice, tone, demeanor, and in her eyes when she said, excuse me?
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
I was like, it's about to go down.
Oh, shit. Nigga, please.
And that was just for me, a very natural reaction. My husband laughs. He was like, the world got to hear your tone that I used with him when he didn't clean the house or something like that for the first time.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
President Trump, former President Trump, looked for journalists to be a sparring partner. He wanted a punching bag. He enjoyed getting in the mud with us.
Because he just doesn't like us, and he doesn't respect the job we do.
For me to have given that to him would have lost what I was there to do, which was to ask the questions.
Okay, why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China.
I can get down and dirty, and I have colleagues who do get down and dirty. That's not my style.
I have never heard his messaging as dark as it has been in recent weeks. You mentioned last night. We also, Tony just mentioned today, we saw the former president cast his ballot there in Florida, where he falsely claimed yet again fraud in 2020.
Why did a bunch of different states shut down voting on election night? These aren't crackpot questions. These are totally legitimate questions, and most people have not heard the answers.
Where he falsely claimed yet again fraud in 2020.
Over in the state of California, a man who was previously a sitting member of a city council, he was convicted and sentenced to jail for running an elaborate voter fraud scheme.
The state Republican Party received calls to its hotline concerning voter fraud, something Congressman Rick Allen says he got calls about too.
Where he falsely claimed yet again fraud in 2020.
Talked to someone who was a poll worker and said they were not counting votes for President Trump.
Purdue has a substantial lead. The president has a substantial lead. And 3 days later, the president's, down by 14,000 votes.
Where he falsely claimed yet again fraud in 2020.
It does seem like people have legitimate concerns about whether the system is working fairly.
You mentioned why was voting stopped in 5 or 6 states? I think it was actually 5 states and 6 cities for 4 hours. Why are ballots showing up? These are questions. They deserve investigations and answers, transparent answers. And when all we get back is, shut up, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're attacking the integrity of our democracy, that doesn't give anybody confidence in the integrity of the system. It makes you suspect that something fishy is going on.
Where he falsely claimed yet again fraud in 2020. And he talked again with lies about criminal migrants, he said, pouring through our border. That is just factually untrue. With lies about criminal migrants, he said, pouring through our border. That is just factually untrue.
Wait until you hear this. The Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement confirms that more than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder have been caught at the border and then released into the United States.
And he talked again with lies about criminal migrants, he said, pouring through our border. That is just factually untrue.
ICE has something called a non-detained docket. Essentially what that is it means migrants who were encountered by DHS but are no longer in federal custody. On ICE's non-detained docket, they're currently tracking 425,000 non-citizens who have been convicted of a crime. Of that number, over 13,000 non-citizens have convictions for homicide and are on the non-detained docket, meaning they're roaming the country right now. On top of that, there are another 15,811 non-citizens convicted of sexual assault who are roaming the country right now on ICE's non-detained docket.
Lies about criminal migrants, he said, pouring through our border. That is just factually untrue. But it's important that we talk about what he has done with race in this campaign since the very beginning, because it's really been unlike anything we have seen in modern political history. He has suggested that migrants have bad genes, that they're poisoning the blood of our country.
Right now, there are over 13,000 illegal aliens convicted of homicide who are roaming the United States right now. There are another 15,811 illegal aliens roaming the country right now who have been convicted of sexual assault, and there are even more who are facing charges for homicide and charges for sexual assault. Looking at the numbers on this letter right here, there are currently over 600,000 non-citizens on this non-detained docket who are roaming the country right now. Of that, 425,000 have already been convicted of crimes. 222,000 are pending crimes.
There's a very clear strategy with Donald Trump. Having covered him for so long, he is targeting and really trying to speak to young men who feel aggrieved in this country, who feel like they have not been getting their fair share, telling them that those are the people that are making your neighborhoods unsafe and they are taking your jobs, and really tapping into this us versus them and expanding who the us is. What I'll be watching for tonight, though, is whether that actually works, because traditionally, a closing argument in a campaign for president has been hope. Traditionally, a closing argument in a campaign for president has been hope.
We're going to turn our country around. I will end inflation very quickly. You know how we're going to end it? By drilling and drilling and drill. Energy is going to bring everything down. Energy is going to bring it down. And I will stop the invasion of criminals coming across our border. I will strengthen our military. I will restore peace in the world. And I will rescue the American dream. We're going to have the American dream back soon. Together, we will begin the 4 greatest years in the history of our country, and we will launch the most extraordinary economic boom the world has ever seen.
Traditionally, a closing argument in a campaign for president has been hope and optimism, and that is what is thought to drive voters to the poll. And today from Donald Trump, what we heard there in Florida was that immigrants are, again, taking your jobs and ruining this country.
But before that, I just think we ran a good campaign. I had good policy. We want people to come into our country, but they have to come in legally. You know, we want strong borders, and we want people to come in. We want to be totally inclusive, but they have to come in. I think that was a big issue. To me, that was the biggest issue.
We heard there in Florida was that immigrants are, again, taking your jobs and ruining this country.
I may be wrong. You know, a lot of people said inflation. Inflation's a disaster, but I think it's a second issue. I think the first is the border. We can't allow criminals to be put back into our country or to be put into our country. So you have 13,000 plus murderers allowed to roam in our country. Not going to be allowed. They have to go. You have drug dealers. You have terrorists. You have a tremendous amount of people that should not be in our country, and we need strong borders in this country. And I think people are voting. And I think it's personally, I think it's the number one issue. We'll see how it pans out, but I think it's the number one issue.
These late-breaking voters, right? These late deciders, as we call them. And the Harris campaign has said on the record that they believe those late deciders were breaking by double digits for them. We don't have the full exit polls yet from the whole country, so we don't know yet exactly if that's true.
The Fox News decision desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
The former president's comeback will be complete with a win in Wisconsin, a state that he narrowly lost 4 years ago. He is now the second president in U.S. history to win non-consecutive terms. Senator J.D. Vance will become the 50th vice president of the United States. Voters express deep frustration with the Biden administration, and former President Trump and the future President Trump overperformed in urban areas, particularly with men, proving that the strategy that they doubled and tripled down on over the course of the last few months absolutely succeeded and brought him back to the White House.
But then last night, the message in particular, I was struck by even all the things that Donald Trump said, by having a crowd in Michigan shouting the B word to describe the highest ranking woman in American politics, Nancy Pelosi.
She sells her stock. Hours after she sells her stock, they announce that Visa is under massive investigation. The stock goes tumbling down. She's a crooked person. She's a bad person. Evil. She's an evil, sick, crazy, bad. Oh, no. It starts with a B, but I won't say it. I want to say it.
The crowd in Michigan shouting the B word to describe the highest ranking woman in American politics, Nancy Pelosi, when at the same time his own campaign acknowledges he needs women voters.
I am your voice. This is the greatest political movement in the history of our country. And even you people, and some of you are fair sometimes, but it's the greatest movement in the history of our country, and I've made that statement 1,000 times. It has never been challenged. It is the greatest movement, and we're going to make America great again. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see you.